YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with some more NFL free agency predictions. And yesterday, the most recent video went through 15 of the top NFL free agents. I predicted where they would land. We're going to go over 15 more players in this video, and we're going to have at least one more video full of players with predictions as well. We have all kinds of free agency coverage throughout free agency. We grade every single signing. That'll be several videos, so make sure you join us on the channel. We also cover the draft, trades, and in-season stuff as well. So definitely join us, like, subscribe to notifications on. Make sure you follow our Twitter. Very, very important. Live news, rumors, updates, talking cap space, restructures, everything, all kinds of news on our Twitter. And Twitter subscribers get some bonus content like all these free agency predictions and more landing spots and all kinds of extra content there. So check it out. Link pinned in the comments for that Twitter, as well as our Discord, as well as GLD Shop, our sponsor, who has NFL pennants and chains like this Vikings one I'm wearing right now. Code GOAT, Liquid IV, code GOAT, Walk the Mock. Very cool mock draft simulator, code GOATHOUSE50. Links pinned in the comments. And if you haven't seen that last video, go check it out. It's the same thing with different free agents, starting with Dalton Schultz, big time tight end available in free agency. It sure sounds like he's not going back to the Cowboys. It sounds like the Cowboys aren't going to sign him. They're going to save their money, spend it elsewhere. Keep hearing their offense is going to look a bit different. That's what I keep hearing. So, in terms of the prediction, I'm going to go with the Chargers. I mean, you got that connection that helps over there as well, and that is Kellen Moore, the offense coordinator from the Cowboys, going over to the Chargers. And Schultz works so good. Kind of came out of nowhere. You know, was a decent tight end out of Stanford, but kind of came out of nowhere in terms of the production that the impact that he's been has been way better than expected. And that was under Kellen Moore. And the Chargers looking for, you know, more to add to their passing game. People keep saying they need to add another receiver. Well, they keep Keenan Allen on. There was some talk about possibly them moving on from him, but they keep him. They have Mike Williams. They have Josh Palmer. So why not add a big-time tight end that we know fits that system to elevate the whole passing game, entire passing game? I think it makes a lot of sense, actually. And there's been some talk about them moving on from Gerald Everett, who's a sneaky good weapon, but get even better with Schultz here. As we're speaking, the Chargers don't have the most cap space. Recently restructured Keenan Allen, but they'll continue to clear more space and they'll be able to make moves like this. Their identity has to be offense with Justin Herbert, so make a splash move like this. It makes it that way, you know. And the Texans would be my next guess. They need a better tight end here. They'll really value the tight end too, you know, bringing in some of the staff of the 49ers, you know, where they value the tight ends, and Slowick's going to be that offense coordinator, of course. You know, so they could have some interest in getting a big time tight end here in Dalton Schultz. You know, could he be their George Kittle? George Kittle definitely a much better blocker, so could that be, you know, playing a part, looking for a guy that's maybe a little bit better a blocker, even though Schultz can do it. But I do like the Texans. They have a lot of spending money. They could go wild in free agency here, but the Chargers made the most sense. Other teams, the Packers, the Giants, the Commanders, what do they do at Logan Thomas? Kind of looking out for the future here as well. And then I can't 100% rule out the Cowboys. They cleared a lot of space today with restructures that we expected, that we've talked about. You know, so maybe they're clearing space to be able to make some new moves, but maybe surprise us and get a guy back like this. So we can't really fully rule it out, but it makes sense with Schultz and the Chargers there. Eric Kendricks recently released by the Vikings, one of the better linebackers in football until last year where they switched schemes and he had very much so an off year. But I definitely think he can get back on track. He just needs to go back to being a 4-3 inside linebacker, who was one of the better 4-3 inside linebackers in football last time we seen him play that role. Very good in coverage, very good in run support, obviously. I love the fit with the Bills. I guess this is depending on them losing Tremaine Edmunds, which I had him in my last video. I predicted them to lose him, but they could get him back still. And then if they get him back, they're not going to get Eric Kendricks. So kind of like a domino effect here. But I'm going to predict they lose Edmunds, and I love the fit of Eric Kendricks. You know, the Bills run a 4-3 when the Vikings defense was so good over those years when Kendricks was really good. It was obviously a 4-3, but we saw a lot of, a mixture of coverages, but a lot of cover two, and then where Kendricks was very good in coverage, the Bills run as much cover two as anybody. You know, Frazier taking a year off. Maybe they adjust some things a little bit. I don't think they're going to completely go away from their identity. I think we'll see a bit of, cover two-man under. But, Kendrick's going to be cheaper than Edmunds. He's probably better than Edmunds right now if he's in the right scheme, which the Bills is. Edmunds got all that upside, though. and that's a lot of what free agency is about. But if they lose Edmonds, I'd look out for Eric Kendricks for the Buffalo Bills. Should be a lot cheaper. Maybe under $10 million as well, which is good. That could be a big-time pickup there for the Buffalo Bills. Again, love the fit. Cowboys makes sense as well. They're looking for an off-ball linebacker on the inside. Leighton Vander Esch, a free agent, could be looking to improve, at that spot. And they brought in Anthony Barr, that was kind of the duo for a long time on that Vikings team, Kendricks and Anthony Barr. To play that outside linebacker role. They brought him in last year, and they'll view Kendricks as a fit. I think it's a strong possibility here. They cleared some cap space, so that's great. So I do like the Bills and the Cowboys a lot. And then some other teams that I can see, him fitting in at the inside linebacker role. It depends on what Vance Joseph wants to do in Denver, but they do have George Payton over there who used to work with the Vikings, so kind of a wild card team. But other teams where he'd really fit scheme-wise and maybe could be looking for an inside linebacker. I love the Bills and the Cowboys, though, really do, for Eric Kendricks, who, wasn't a scheduled free agent, but now released and ends up being maybe one of the better guys here in free agency. So what are the Vikings going to do at linebacker? I like Lavonte David for them a lot, for that Brian Flores defense, and it sounds like, well, it feels like the Bucs are in some sort of rebuild stage here, and it sounded like they're going to let Lavonte David test free agency. I guess there's some sort of chance to get him back. Longtime veteran, they're kind of going in a rebuild, letting him test free agency. Somebody else probably pay him a little bit more. I think most likely he walks. I really like the Vikings and the Giants. I think I mentioned the Giants with every inside linebacker. They're going to be looking. They're bound to get one of these guys. I really like him in both those schemes. I really like him in that Brian Flores scheme. They're going to be looking for an inside linebacker, or maybe two, because they could move on from Jordan Hicks as well. Very good at blitzing, obviously. Flores wants to run a bit of cover 1 and cover 3. What did we see the Bucs run all those years? Both of those things there, both of those coverages on defense. I think it's a tremendous fit. And again, they're going to be looking for replacements at linebackers and guys that just fit a little bit more, obviously. But the Giants, Don Martindale looking for a better inside linebacker, and then looking for a guy that can blitz. Lavonte David has experience blitzing as well. So I thought that was a really good fit. Steelers, I think they'll be on just like the Giants. I think they'll be on Tremaine Edmonds. Maybe if they miss, maybe they look at a guy like Lavonte David, some others. The Dolphins could see him in Vic Fangio's scheme as well, pair him with Jerome Baker. Chargers definitely would fit Brandon Staley's scheme. And the Patriots, which would be a great fit with Belichick. Last year, they almost made comments like they're looking to get younger at the linebacker position, and they were pretty young there. So maybe they continue on with that. Maybe that'd be a reason they don't get Lavonte David. But we got some news coming in. So the Broncos are releasing Ronald Darby. So news happens as I record videos. It just seems to be some sort of connection. I start recording, stuff starts happening. But Lavonte David, another one of those inside linebackers to look out for there. Moving on, speaking of the Vikings, Dalvin Tomlinson, who is their free agent defensive tackle. This is a tough one too, because I was feeling the Raiders for a bit, even before the offseason started. I was feeling the Raiders for Dalvin Tomlinson, who had a really good year for them for the Vikings last year. Familiar face there and a connection with Patrick Graham, who coached with the Giants as their defense coordinator, as the defense coordinator for the Raiders. So there was a connection there, and the Raiders need interior defense linemen so badly. Dalvin Tomlinson, one of the better ones in free agency. Raiders have a lot of cap space. I was going to predict the Raiders, but a recent move kind of has me leaning towards the Vikings, and that was his contract had void years on it. So when it got to that certain date, it's kind of locked in where the Vikings pay the cap hits on those void years in the future. It's locked in. But if you re-sign a player, they're able to kind of work around some things, push some cap space around. But it got to that deadline, but the Vikings and Dalvin Tomlinson agreed to move back that deadline into the start of actual free agency on the 15th. So what that tells me is the Vikings didn't want to be locked in for those void year cap hits just yet, because they may sign him to a longer deal. So it's not a guarantee, but it really felt like to me that they plan on signing him, and maybe they're already working on that. So I feel like I almost have to predict the Vikings then, but I really like the Raiders for him. And there's a lot of teams that need interior defensive linemen, a lot of teams. That's good news for them, is that there's some pretty good ones in free agency here, even though Daron Payne was taken off the board through franchise tags. But the Browns, the Bears, the 49ers, and the Lions also make sense. They need interior guys. They can afford a guy like this. I think it would be a pretty good fit, but my prediction for some time is going to be the Raiders, but the fact the Vikings made it kind of clear that they at least want to work out a deal with Dalvin Tomlinson kind of had me feeling like I got to predict them. But we will see. Doesn't mean they're guaranteed to do that. They're making other moves right now. So we will see. Next, David Long Jr., who I think we talked about a few linebackers already. I think this is one of the better linebackers in free agency, a very underrated player. He was having a monster season last year for the Tennessee Titans as an inside linebacker. I thought he was pretty good in coverage too. Playing against like Travis Kelce, which no one can cover him. People put DBs on him. I thought he did a pretty good job. I'm going to say the Titans get him back. He's young, so he can be a part of whatever they're trying to do over there. I don't think they're going and rebuilding there. It's more of like a retool. Well, at least they're not going like stage one of throwing. They're just bringing it all down. But we'll see. But I think he could be a part of anything was the point that they're trying to do over there. And we know he fits, obviously. They have cap space. They cleared some space. So I don't see why not in terms of bringing him back. Possibly go with, because they need 2 inside linebackers. I think they're going to have Monty Rice step up perhaps. So I'm going to predict them to get him back. I like the Seahawks as a landing spot as well. I think it's kind of what they're looking for there to pair with Jordan Brooks, that style of linebacker that can kind of bring that coverage element to his game. So I do like the fit of the Seahawks. Raiders like to fit there as well in that Patrick Graham defense and another linebacker. The Browns make sense because Jim Schwartz, who is with the Titans, since he came in, they've been doing a very good job up front stopping the run. The Browns bring him as defensive coordinator, so there's a little bit of a connection there. So that's why I'm looking at the Browns. Steelers, I think, will be in a little bit more on some other guys, which we talked about maybe the last video. But if they miss on another guy or two, I mean, David Long's got to be up on the kind of the list, because he's a really good young player, continuing to get better. And the Giants kind of in the same situation as the Steelers, so some good fits there. I think he ends up going back to the Titans, though. Next, David Onyemata. I've been predicting this for a bit. I like the Lions for him. Detroit Lions looking for an interior defensive lineman. They got a lot of young players. Maybe get a veteran guy that can be a part of the team, not just for more than a year, more than 2 years perhaps. I think a guy with some experience, leadership, I think would make some sense there. And they just need better interior players. They probably think they're set at nose tackle with Aleem McNeil for the future. I agree with that. More of a D tackle here. And Onyemata can line up at the nose if you need him to as well. I think it just makes sense. They move on from Brockers, a longtime veteran. Just get a better veteran in here too. Makes a lot of sense. Also, coming from the Saints, he's been a standout defensive tackle. I think an underrated player from the Saints. The Lions defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, came from the Saints. Their head coach, Dan Campbell, came from the Saints. So I think there's some connections. Well, there is some connections there where it makes some sense. Maybe they'll be in on a guy like Javon Hargrave, who we talked about last video first. Maybe Dalvin Tomlinson's a little bit better, but I like the fit here. And the Raiders will be looking for a veteran defensive tackle. We kind of talked about that. Could go back to the Saints. They sometimes find ways to keep these guys around. Some of the same teams. The Browns, the Seahawks, the Giants could be a sneaky team there. But a lot of these teams probably, Javon Hargrave might be the number one on their list with these types of guys, but maybe they don't get him. Maybe they're good with some of these other good guys like Onyemata, Dalvin Tomlinson, some of these other players here. So I think the Lions make the most sense there for Onyemata, the New Orleans Saint defensive tackle. Next, Jonathan Jones. Who I've been preaching is like an underrated corner, like better than you think. And now he's starting to get, I was like, how is he not getting talked about more? Now he's starting to get talked about more. People talking about how he's going to get more money than he expected. He's a really good defensive back. He was one of the better slot corners in football for a bit. This year, the Patriots had to put him on the outside, and I thought he played pretty damn well for being a slot corner. His career, he played pretty well on the outside, so having that versatility to play both. I'd actually make, this might sound bold, it's not bold to me. I think a guy like Jonathan Jones is more valuable to the Patriots, more valuable, maybe not in terms of production or the impact with some plays, but more valuable to the Patriots than some of those other corners they have let walk. Example, J.C. Jackson in the past. I think, again, I'll say it again, it's going to surprise a lot of people. I think Jonathan Jones is more valuable to the Patriots than those guys. And you could say, well, J.C. Jackson, yeah, makes more of an impact getting all those interceptions. But Jones just being that versatile inside-outside guy, I think makes him have value. I think the Patriots feel like they can replace those guys like J.C. Jackson who just play outside corner. They're super athletic, so they can make plays on the ball, because what the rest of the defense is doing, I think they can replace those guys with young athletic guys on the draft. I don't know if Jonathan Jones is as replaceable, my opinion. So for those reasons, I think the Patriots will really value trying to get him back. I think somebody maybe could offer him more, because there is a limit with the Patriots with how much they value these types of players, corners specifically in the past, even though I think they'll value him, like I said. So somebody could offer more, so it's a tough one. But I'm going to go Patriots. We talked about the Lions the last guy. We're going to talk about the Lions again. I like the fit here. The Lions could use an outside corner and an inside corner. They play a lot of man coverage. We saw that last year, which the Patriots play Jonathan Jones' experience in. So I like the fit. I like the need. The Lions have the cap space as well, so that's a team to watch. Falcons, same thing. Could use an outside, inside. I guess, new defense coordinator. I can see them kind of sticking to the cover 3 scheme last year, or maybe going with some man coverage where the Saints been running, because they do bring in a Saints background at defensive coordinator. Vikings could fit the Brian Flores defense for sure. Do they have the money for this? Not yet. Maybe they will. Giants, yeah, man coverage over there with led by Don Martindale's in his defense. Could use a versatile guy like this. And the Dolphins, for sure, with Vic Fangio there, we'll see a bit of man coverage there, and they could use a corner as well. But I'm going to go with them going back to the Patriots here. Yeah, it's an interesting one, though. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of his game, and I think he's been a little underrated. Maybe because people are like, yeah, every time a guy leaves the Patriots, he's not as good, especially the corners. It's a little bit different of a guy here. A little bit, him being that versatile is fantastic. We're going to keep talking about the Patriots. It's a little bit of a bold one, too, maybe, with the Patriots getting Jimmy Ward. And this one's tough. This is kind of that domino effect could come into play here, because we talked about Jesse Bates in the last video. I love Jesse Bates, but I love Jesse Bates for the Patriots. I predicted it in a tweet like a year ago that Devin McCourty will retire and they'll replace him with Jesse Bates. Today, Devin McCourty retired, so that'd be phenomenal. But I'm almost I keep hearing, I haven't heard much about the Patriots and Jesse Bates. I love the fit. It could happen. I just keep hearing Browns, and they did release John Johnson recently. They barely freed any space by doing that, so you don't really do that just to free the $900K and just get worse at safety. You do it because you want to get better. It's only worth it if you get better, and then Jesse Bates is really the only answer with free safety. So I'm going to, 50-50, Browns-Patriots. My point is, Jimmy Ward, this actually ends up being a lot more complex, because Jimmy Ward might not be a free safety. Technically has not been a free safety recently, but if the Patriots get a lot of dominoes here, if the Patriots get Jesse Bates, less likely to get Ward. Jonathan Jones is a factor too, because Ward's been actually more of a slot corner recently. He was originally a free safety, good there. He's been playing more slot corner recently, and he said he wanted to play free safety again. He feels like he's a safety. He's not demanding it. He's not refusing to play nickel. That's kind of came out very recently as well. So if they get Jonathan Jones back and they don't like Ward as a free safety and they like Jonathan Jones in the slot, then probably no Ward if they want to keep Jonathan Jones outside like last year. So there's a lot of pieces here. But I'm having a hard time finding a landing spot for Jimmy Ward if he goes elsewhere. He did make the comment that he would like to play free safety. When he made that comment, I think it was on Instagram, and he said that Shanahan told him that, well, you can hit the bench then, basically is what he said. So I'm like, okay, he's not going back to the Niners. He recently said he's okay with playing nickel still. He would just prefer free safety, his original position, which he was pretty good at. Better in the slot, but they still moved him around. They used him in multiple spots. But we're gonna keep the Niners open here, possibly going back and playing the slot there. The Browns could be after a free safety after cutting John Johnson, and they could play Ward at that spot. The problem is I think more teams will view Ward as a slot guy over a free safety. That's kind of issue for Ward. The Jets, they did just trade for Chuck Clark, a totally different style of safety. They do have Whitehead. They could add Ward too. I was actually going to predict the Jets too. I was actually thinking about the Jets, but do they feel they need him? And they have Robert Saleh too, the former 49er. They'll like him at free safety. I can see the Jets there, You know, are they going to use 3 of those guys? You know, what's the plan for Clark? Because he can play in the box like an outside linebacker as well. I could definitely see the Jets. I'm almost talking myself back into it because that was my original prediction. The Chiefs, I could see the Chiefs adding a guy like this. In the Commanders, if he's okay with playing in the slot for the Commanders, kind of like a better Bobby McCain replacement here. So that's a tough one. A lot has to happen here, or this will tell us this, that. So that's a tricky one here with Jimmy Ward. Just felt like, a veteran guy that Bill Belichick might like with the Patriots. But the Jets are interesting with Saleh there. It's just, what's their plan? Because, Whitehead could play strong and free, but they can keep, I like him better at strong. But Clark's a strong / almost like an outside linebacker / slot guy where he can man up on people. Do they feel like they need a free safety? Ward played free safety for Robert Saleh, so it's an interesting one. Definitely an interesting one. We're on a roll with the Patriots right now. Donovan Smith, which is an interesting free agent, an interesting player actually in general, because he's one of those guys that gets ripped so much that people think he's really bad at football, and that's really not the case. Like, he's a pretty decent tackle. He has experience. I guess when Tom Brady got sacked, it wasn't Tristan Wirfs' fault because he might be the best right tackle in football. It ended up being Donovan Smith's fault, allowing a pressure or a sack perhaps, but he's got experience. He's been a solid tackle throughout his career, was really good when they won the Super Bowl. I think he's got stuff left in the tank for sure. Well, he's 29. It's not like he's 39, So I think it's a starting left tackle. People are going to rip him a lot. It's just one of those guys. There's quite a few guys out there like that. It's weird in the NFL. Like, they're not perfect. Obviously, they're not great players, but a solid player here that might not be super, super expensive. He might be, he might get some money. Teams will be interested. I'm going to go with the Patriots. They need a left tackle here. Maybe put Trent Brown back at right tackle if they continue to hold on to him as well. I talked about it yesterday. I think the Patriots will be in on Orlando Brown Jr. as well as the Titans, who my next guess is here. And some people think he's leaving the Chiefs. He could go elsewhere, so it very easily could be Orlando Brown Jr. the Patriots, who was my second guess for Orlando Brown Jr. And then if that's happened, then they're not going to get Donovan Smith. So that's kind of the tricky part with predicting these types of things. But I see a fit there at left tackle. So Patriots, if they miss out on Orlando Brown, it could be Donovan Smith. Titans, same thing. They could be in on Orlando Brown. Maybe they don't want to spend insane amount of money there, so they could go with a guy like Donovan Smith. Other landing spots, teams that could be looking for a left tackle here. The Chiefs, if they miss out on Orlando Brown. The Commanders, if they view Donovan Smith as better than Charles Leno, maybe they move on from Leno, free that $8 million. Broncos, Jets, other teams I mentioned here. But yeah, it's an interesting one. A guy that gets ripped a ton, but better than the way people talk, and not that he's great. So we went on a run of Patriots predictions, which are tricky ones, because again, you got to wait for one domino to fall for the next one. So we'll see, but they have cap space. They'll make some moves. They'll make some moves here for sure. Just speaking of Patriots, Jakobi Meyers, their receiver, I think they would like him back, but I think they're kind of set on a limit on how much they're going to spend. I think he gets paid more than that. I think he's going to get paid more than what people think. I like the Falcons a lot. I think it's just a random prediction, sort of, but I think the Falcons end up with either Jakobi Meyers or Corey Davis. You might say, well, Corey Davis is under contract as you're talking right now. That's true. The Jets, I don't know if they'll cut him, but they could trade him. I love the fit with the Falcons. He has a background with Arthur Smith, their head coach and play caller. They're looking for that style of receiver. So can they make a move for Corey Davis, who will be cheaper than Meyers, so that might actually be a little more valuable to them. But a free agent that I really like is a fit to pair with Kyle Pitts, to pair with Drake London, is Jakobi Meyers. And the Falcons have the spending money. It's a team. I've already predicted between this and the first video, I've already predicted the Falcons to land some guys. So I think they're going to go pretty big in free agency. Could be wrong, but I think they're going to go pretty big. I like the Packers as well. It just feels like a Packer-style receiver, especially that they're missing. They don't have this type of guy right now. Could pair him with the young guys they have that they drafted last year. And they've cleared some space. The Packers are tricky. Because they've been clearing a lot of space, so they might make more moves than I have them pegged to do. They're tough. They're a little sneaky. What are they really focused on? Finally, a receiver. Maybe the offensive line took us a little bit of a step down last year, because they always had so much focus on that, having one of the best offensive lines in football. Can they fix that up? Do they go get a better tight end? They're going to go with Jordan Love, it feels like. Do they add we'll talk about Adrian Amos. Do they add a replacement there? Do they add another pass rusher? they could do multiple different things. I just don't know where their focus is. So they're a weird team, the Packers. I like the Texans for them, for Myers, I should say, as well. There's another team like the Falcons that can go pretty big in free agency. Pretty, can go make some big moves like this. So I could definitely see that. The Giants been linked to receivers. The Titans definitely need to upgrade receivers. They've been clearing space. And I definitely can't rule out the Patriots. I think they would like them back. I just don't want to spend a crazy amount of money here. And I think the team like the Falcons could spend a crazy amount of money, perhaps. Next, Frank Clark, who was released by the Chiefs. I was actually saying at one point, don't be surprised if the Chiefs release him, but don't also be surprised if he goes back to the Chiefs on a cheaper deal. I do think that's in play. They made a post on Twitter thanking Frank Clark, and it almost felt like goodbye. So, and I guess that doesn't mean a whole lot. But before that, I was going to predict that Frank Clark goes back to the Chiefs, but maybe a little less likely. I'm going to go with them as my next guess. I do love the fit on the Browns, opposite of Myles Garrett, and they're looking for somebody else. They keep adding these veterans. They had Clowney last time. I think an upgrade here. Frank Clark is a machine in the playoffs. The Browns plan on being in the playoffs, and having that duo could be pretty good. He shouldn't be super expensive either. That's probably the best fit. If he's not going to be on the Chiefs, where's the best fit? I like the Browns. I think it's a really good fit with the Saints, too. Will they have the cap to do it? Falcons could be looking for a pass rusher. Might try one of the younger guys first. The Texans, same thing. I think Texans and Falcons, they might try on Davenport, guy like that first. If they miss out on him, maybe Frank Clark's an option. The Broncos could add him like another Randy Gregory-style pass rusher there. But I thought the Browns made a lot of sense as a fit, for sure. And, a lot of moves being made here. But, all right, so that's another guy that wasn't scheduled to be a free agent, even though we thought he might be, and now he is. And he's a pretty good one there because he's a good pass rusher, especially in those big games, those huge games when you need him most. That's what really stood out to me about him over his career. Next, John Johnson. Speaking of the Browns, they kind of surprisingly released him. I know John Johnson didn't really live up to his contract or the hype. That one, he was one of the better free safeties in football when he was with the Rams. And they signed him that big deal. He didn't really live up to that, but he's a decent free safety. They only freed $900K by moving on from him. So that was a little bit surprising. Maybe a plan to get better, like a sure thing free safety. We've talked about that throughout this video and the last one especially. So check that out if you haven't seen it, but it's a very similar video. Pretty much the same video with different free agents. But so where's John Johnson, who I think becomes one of the better defensive backs, free agent defensive backs, I should say. I'm going to go Chargers. I wanted to predict the Panthers, actually. And you don't even see the Panthers on here. I wanted to predict the Panthers because I think they haven't really valued free safety with the last staff, guys. I mean, there was guys in and out last year, obviously. They haven't really valued free safety. Now I think they could. They bring in Ejiro Evero, who worked with the Rams. He was with the Broncos last year, worked with the Rams, obviously, so familiar with maybe a John Johnson, that type of player, him exactly. And he'll value free safety. He won't be super expensive, so the Panthers made a lot of sense, like a fit, connection. But they have Xavier Woods, who I think, he's a below average free safety, maybe around that. I think it's a little generous, but they restructured his contract. I thought they might cut him. They would have to make it a post-June 1st. I thought maybe they would do that. Today they restructured his contract, so it feels like he's gonna be there. So I guess it doesn't completely remove them. They just put Woods on the bench and bring in John Johnson. So I guess that's a team I was actually going to predict. Now I don't have him on here at all. So that's an interesting team there to watch out for. But I like him at free safety with the Chargers. Brandon Staley, who was actually with the Rams for a little bit too. He fits his scheme. He's running a lot of cover 4 and man coverage there. They could use a free safety. Nasir Adderley, who's been all right, is a free agent. And they could have some guys step up. They kind of planned for this a year ago. They drafted JT Woods. They have a Loie Gilman, but I like him, up front a little bit more, kind of doing Derwin James type things as well. But he could be a playmaker in the back end. But I think they look for a free safety, and there's one that fits Brandon Staley's defense. I think it makes some sense. He could go back to the Rams. At one point, I'm going to predict the Panthers. I'm going to predict the Rams because he works so well with the Rams. They need safeties badly. They have free agents, but I don't know what they're doing. I mean, they're tearing it down, it feels like, right now. So, they could add him back, though. They definitely could add him back. And the Patriots, Eagles, Falcons, Jets, some other teams that could use a free safety in there. But I like the Chargers, like the Rams, and I really liked at one point the Panthers, so we'll see. Next, Arden Key. I'm going to go with the Bears on this one, the team with the most cap space in this offseason and for free agency. Arden Key, who's been, kind of was known as like a bust type player early on, but really got going ever since the 49ers. And with the Jags last year, I like him rushing off the edge, but he can, line up multiple different spots, rushing from the inside as well or standing up and blitzing. I think Eberflus will value that because Eberflus is, in his past defenses, looking at the Colts and looking at the guys he traded away with the Bears. He hasn't really valued, for some weird reason, the edge guys, but Arden Key is more than that. Is he as good as some of those big time edge players that the Bears maybe got rid of? Absolutely not. But a young player that's just getting better, that's a little unique and where they might value. He's not the biggest free agent, but again, a lot of upside here. So I do like the Bears for Arden Key. They might be in on a guy like Marcus Davenport first, which I think a lot of teams would be interested in. And I do like the Texans for Arden Key. Actually played under DeMeco Ryans when he was with the 49ers, where he kind of revived his career or got his career going. So it's a pretty good fit. The Texans might go a little bigger. I like Marcus Davenport for them, but Arden Key makes some sense as well. The Jags could very well get him back. They liked him last year. The Falcons, Seahawks, and Chargers are other good fits. And then teams that could use a pass rusher there. So this could be a sneaky free agent there. Next, Yannick Ngakoue. Pass rusher of the Colts. He has a tricky one too because the Falcons I've actually predicted to get quite a few free agents at this point, but I did not have them getting up to this point. Maybe their biggest need in the pass rusher. I have them involved in those guys, looking at last video, maybe this video too. But just missing out. So they're going to have to get somebody because they need a pass rusher really bad. So I ended up with Yannick Ngakoue, but if the Falcons end up getting a guy, I think they'll be in on Marcus Davenport, like I said. They could get him, and they'll be out on Ngakoue for obvious reasons. But an up-and-down career from Ngakoue so far, but a solid pass rusher. The Colts could very well like him back. The Colts always stay quiet in free agency, but sometimes they get their own guys back. So we'll see. They very well could want him back, but the Falcons could. If they miss out on this guy, they may spend a little bit extra on this guy, in this case, Yannick Ngakoue. But the Texans, Seahawks, Panthers, Browns, I could see as a fit. Again, I think teams will be focused on other guys first. Not that Ngakoue is not good. He's a good player, good pass rusher. Not the best stop in a run, but gets after the quarterback. But I think other teams will be focused on 1, 2, or 3 other guys first, maybe 4. And then maybe this could be the guy that comes off the board next. A pretty good pass rusher here. And then one more here for this video. Adrian Amos, the Packers safety, who looked like one of the better safeties in football for a bit. Last year, he was a little off. He was definitely went downhill. I almost get the feeling that the Packers will get somebody else that they view fits a little better for what they're trying to run over there, because he did have an off year. But I also can see them kind of going back because he was pretty good in like split safety schemes, cover 2, cover 4. But I like cover 2 a lot for him. And then sometimes up in the box here and there, but not really recently. So the Packers could maybe go with somebody that fits, because again, they stopped running where like the coverages, like those coverages I just named, where Amos was thriving, and they kind of went towards a different direction. They were mixing up quite a bit last year, but maybe a little more man coverage in there last year. So maybe find a replacement to kind of run what they were trying to run last year, where this defense is heading, which I think could be pretty damn good. So that is why maybe he could be out the door. I like the Bills as a fit. A lot of cover 2 there. They're going to let Jordan Poyer walk. It sure sounds like this would be a cheaper Jordan Poyer, and then it'll get Amos back on track to where he fits. He fits that defense, and it's a pretty good defense where their safeties were balling. I think Amos, if he goes to a team like the Bills, it's a great fit, and I think he could really get back on track. I think he could ball out, and that could be a pretty good move for the Bills. I actually had the Bills getting 2 guys, even though they have like no cap space at this moment. They'll clear some space, but 2 guys here in this video, actually. But he could go back to the Packers. There's not a lot of landing spots I love. You're looking for specific schemes. He really fits the Chiefs. Will they focus on safety though? Eagles could fit. Rams. And the Falcons perhaps as well. But I really like the Bills as a fit there. I really feels like, all right, we're going to let Poyer walk because he's going to get this amount of money. And here's a little bit cheaper. He's still going to cost something, but in Amos, and he can maybe just in that scheme play just as good almost, So I like that fit there. But that wraps up the second free agency video, predictions video. The first one, most recent video, check it out, went through 15 of the top guys. There was 15 more in this one, and we'll do another video with 15 or 16, whatever it may be. And then any last updates, predictions, and live news, rumors, all those updates are on our Twitter, so you're definitely going to want to go follow that. There's a link pinned in the comments. If you want to subscribe on Twitter, not just follow, but subscribe, you get all these predictions and all types of different content in like a spreadsheet format. But any link you're looking for, pin in the comments. Like, subscribe to the notifications on because we have full NFL coverage. Cannot wait for free agency and our free agency videos. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.